try me, bitch.
Target spotted.
Heads up!
Can you feel like again? Looks like I came back for more. When you help us follow, it puts you right back where you came. Right?
While Monster Hunter Wilds was extremely fun, when it launched there were a lot of questions about difficulty, which in my opinion are completely valid. I was able to beat most of the game without actually upgrading my armor. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think that the game needed a Fatalis level fight right from the get-go. However, with the only tough monsters being Gore Magala and Arkville, it can get really tiring really quickly. So at least for me, I was hoping for at least one more monster to join the club with those two. Did they succeed? Let's find out, shall we? So, last of the top, we had just beaten the Tempered Arkville. After a lot of practice, like a lot, but we did eventually clear it. But since then I've done a lot of practice with y'all, so I feel like I've gotten a lot better. So once I come in, I go straight in for the first monster of the update, Mizitsune. A monster that I have never fought before, given that I skipped Rise. And to be honest, I really liked it. It has a flow to its attacks that I really enjoy seeing. It flows extremely smooth in between attacks, which are both quick and have a lot of reach. Added with the bumbles, it adds a really interesting mechanic to the fight, where you need to try and dodge all of its precise movements while making sure not to clash into any one of them. Add on to that how it seems to stop moving for a bit once it attacks, and it actually becomes like a dance, where you're both taking turns attacking each other, which lets me showcase the fact that I now understand how sub-attacks works. Basically, I get to just hold down the button and just deal so much damage for just standing there. You'll definitely see me use this a lot more. Either way, the fight goes extremely well, with a good amount of really cool dodges here and there. However, things start going downhill once I get hit by the first bubble. I kinda just slip and slide up until my cat does revive me after a bit. It all goes well up until I get hit by another bubble, in which case I kinda just fall into a stun lock and probably die. Thankfully, when I was on the way back, it seems Arathos came in to help, and as he was fleeing, I was able to get him out, adding into the damage that I had already dealt, up until it decides to call in its secret power, Plot Armor. In all honesty, this form terrifies me. The startup for most of its attacks actually gets reduced, making its movements a lot harder to dodge. Its bubbles become even more dangerous, and most importantly, it almost one-shots me. I was getting real lucky where it was sending me after I got hit, because I'm pretty sure that I would have gotten comboed to death if it was near me. Thankfully, it gets somewhat stuck in this area, which lets me wail on it for a good while up until it gets tired, letting me capture it without too much trouble. I understand it's a pretty new monster still, but I'm actually really happy it's in Wilds. It's nothing like the other ones we've fought so far. It definitely brings in something different into the table, and since its tempered version is definitely gonna be harder, I'm definitely happy to get to find this more, at least if it's anything compared to Arkville's difficulty. If you'd like to know what I'm talking about, feel free to check out the video I'm linking above, or head down to the description where I have all the playlists linked. It's getting pretty full to be honest, and while you're down there, why not drop a like if you enjoyed the video so far, or subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. I wouldn't be here without all your support. It really means the world to me, and a little community grows day by day. So, why don't we keep it up, shall we? Thanks! Now, the next monster on the list is Shia, and it's a brand new high rank version. I personally really enjoyed its low rank fight, so I'm really excited to see how this goes. The first phase goes pretty straightforward to be honest. Dodge attacks while you use its will crystals against it. It also seems like once you've hit enough of them, it causes it to fall down. Similar to how Fatalis falls once you deal enough damage with artillery weapons. So aside from a accidental weapon switch, we enter phase 2 without too much trouble. The main difference being that it now has access to its fire breath, so it can actually ignite the will crystals itself, though that's not much of a factor if we set them off ourselves. And surprisingly, even with a fully unupgraded leather armor set from high rank, we don't get one-shot by this, probably because the one resistance leather armor has is fire. It is also here where I noticed something. Usually when any element hits the will crystals, they explode. When they are hit by the fire breath, they send out a wave of fire instead. So after a double close call, and it goes to switch faces. I decide to blow up some of the crystals before the fire reaches him, which does end up creating a safe area for me. Well, mostly safe. When you attack it against, it's not really that challenging to survive. However, it does gain more reach on its fireballs, which do require a lot tighter dodging. It also does more than one attack when it attacks, which can make finding openings a little bit harder. Though the biggest change doesn't actually come from the boss itself. It mainly comes from the fact that at this point you're running out of elemental pots. You need to be a lot more careful with dodging the fireballs and the ensuing fireballs. But you can still deal a lot of free damage to it by dropping the shrine on it. Side note, I also get a mount here. Once this is the weapons finisher, it seems to just not care. Nothing wrong with it, I was just surprised because I never saw that happen before. But yeah, it doesn't take too long to actually bring it to its final phase from there. It ends up creating a ton of crystals, so I pump a few of them to get a little bit of extra damage. This is its most aggressive phase so far, especially with the fact that it repeats its charging attack multiple times, usually ending it with a fireball or a thunder strike. However, it does leave it wide open after, giving me a chance to sever the tail. Sadly, a little bit after I get cornered into a wall and can't really escape it. No joke, I think the charge attack is actually the most dangerous attack that it has. Once I get back, I do end up getting hit by a fireball. It throws a lightning strike at me, only for me to actually get rescued by the circuit, right into the lightning. So that's the second down. Once I get back again, I'm able to get another mount, leaving an injury in the head, which lets me do a double stun, letting me rack up here. Okay, after another accidental switch, another fireball to the face, and lots of dodging, we're able to finally take it out. Overall, an extremely fun fight. It relies entirely on you using the opportunities the monster creates, and every attack is easy to dodge as long as you have space. One problem though, I genuinely don't believe there's a single difference between this and the Loric version. I remembered hearing a lot of people who were having issues with this one, that it was in overcorrection and difficulty, but in all truth, I can't tell the difference, to be honest. It's more of a personal thing. Nothing wrong if you find it difficult. I just personally don't see it. But overall, that leaves us with my new monster, the 5-star Tempered Mizitsune. They say it's the same difficulty as Arc Belts, which I'm looking forward to. I also tried hunting the Gore Magalas as they popped up, but we'll get to those later. Now, at this point I was saving Mizitsune investigations, since we were planning for a community hunt around them. That basically meant that I would get a chance to hunt it each time it appeared. Most of these hunts end up in the Scarlet Forest, and pretty much all of them start right here, by the waterfall. My first attempt goes really well, starting off with a sneak attack, dropping down on it, and getting a mount, letting me start off with a lot of damage. However, it all starts going wrong right here. This form is absolutely insane. It almost instantly knocks me out, making me proc Moxie, almost instantly taking me out again. Basically every attack gives me the warning that it can one-shot me, which it then proceeds to do, with the same move. Thankfully, the cat does revive me here. After 2 risky parries, and an even riskier dodge, it does manage to take me out again, with the same move. Sadly, once I get back, I get instantly blasted, so my second life wasn't really useful. By the time I got back there, I had already moved again, and it was no longer in the blue fire state, though it didn't take long for it to reactivate it. Thankfully, Uftuna came in and gave us a lot of free damage on their turn 4, which ends up with it moving again. Once I get there, it almost instantly kills me. Then I get hit by a bubble, which teaches me that they can one-shot me, and then I see what actually turns off the blue fire. I end up dealing a lot of damage and popping a tempered wound, letting me have a longer attack window. However, the moment it goes back into blue fire, yeah, it had potential. I just really fucked up the second light, but it's doable. So after another Shia, I head right back in. I'm sorry for getting to restock my items at first, it goes pretty much the same. And once more, things spice up the moment it goes blue fire again. I ended up leaving a lot of wounds, so I was able to rack up a lot of damage while I was in this form, basically keeping it stunned for a bit, only to be killed by a stray bubble. On my second life, I narrowly avoided a repeat of last time, only to get carded by the next attack. On the third attempt, I luckily survived one shot and then promptly get squished. If it sounds like I'm only describing getting hit and known by attacks, that's because I barely attacked. I used to get one shot way too frequently. I have a fourth attempt thanks to cat insurance, but it just swats me away unceremoniously. The 2 we just had were 4-star Tempered Mizitsunes. The next one was a 3-star, so it should be easier, right? Alright? This one actually was in a different part of the map, so I couldn't get a lot of free damage right off the bat. However, after getting a mount and wheeling on it for a bit, we're actually able to catch up to where we usually would be, only to be killed by the exact same attack that's been killing me all this time. And not even in its blue fire mode, just in its base form. After getting back and wheeling on it for a good while, we're able to force it into its blue fire mode, staying alive and dealing enough damage to force it to change areas. and try to make sure that we are staying as close to it as possible, parrying whenever I can. However, the moment I get too greedy, I get sent right back to camp. Once I get back, I'm actually able to stick to it fairly well, dealing so much damage on it, enough to the point where it actually becomes weakened and goes to its nest to rest. I set up my bombs and actually succeed on the wake up tech, and then get collateral by 2 bubbles. I have no idea how I fumbled that so badly, to be honest. And to raise the stakes even further, the next one to appear was the 5-star I've been waiting on. I have learned a lot, don't get me wrong, but I haven't been able to even beat the 3-star. But either way, I meal up and head out. This one is once more by the waterfall, so my opening is actually rather well practiced. Sneak attack into trying to bait it into the waterfall. It beams me when I go to drop it on him, but thankfully I live just barely. From there, just heal up and start attacking. It does manage to get me pretty low, but I'm able to get away before it can corner me. I get to heal back up to full and get him out, which then lets me get in a lot more damage. From there, it's a lot of careful dodging, taking pot shots here and there while trying to make sure to dodge the attacks as best as I can, which in retrospect looks kinda goofy. At one point I get hit by a normal bubble and end up sleeping on the ground, but thankfully the circuit gets me out of it without too much trouble. From there it goes to move to a separate area, where I'm able to drop in another environmental trap, dealing a lot more extra damage. However, it is at this point where it finally enters its blue fire state. I barely dodged the blue bubble while getting hit by the normal ones and ending up in sunlock, giving me enough time to recover. I go for parries and get extremely lucky with some of its tougher attacks. And I mean extremely lucky. All while managing to open up a blue one. Divine Blessing bails me from this bubble, then it literally scoops me up from the ground, and then actually becomes exhausted, letting me plop the blue wounds and try and go for damage. When I arrive to the area that I moved into, I notice that there's another environmental trap here, adding another big hit. I have no way to describe how locked in I was at this point. I get in another mount and then deal a ton of damage to it. By this point, it was no longer tired though, so it goes back into its blue form. Another parry into another unlucky dodge, and I'm able to actually bring it down while in this state. I stick to it as much as I can, even popping my bubbles with my attacks, making sure to linger on guard points to keep myself safe, and that's when I hear. And with that, we have beaten the Tai-Star Temper Mizitsune. Where overall, it didn't take as long as Arcville, I personally believe this was harder, since you need to be so precise in your movements. I also like that it didn't have any big Nova attacks. It definitely set the pace a lot better with the whole exhaustion. He's too pale in comparison to Gore though, in my opinion at least. But that will be for next time. For now, hope you enjoyed the video. I'm still getting back into the swing of things, and we are almost caught up to current content. In case you haven't seen, a lot of the recordings for these videos will now be live. We're aiming for Saturdays and Sundays to stream, so if you ever want to drop by and say hi, feel free. I really appreciate all the support that you guys have shown this series, both by watching and by being there during the streams. It really means the world to me. I genuinely couldn't have asked for a better community. But yeah, that's all I have to say for now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye! See you later!